Thank you for watching ECSO News, where facts matter. I'm Allison Morgan. Amber Southard has the night off. A month-long drug investigation by the ECSO Narcotics Unit ended Wednesday afternoon. On August 2nd, the narcotics and SWAT teams served a search warrant at a suspected drug house in the 1800 block of West Maxwell Street. When officers arrived, 25-year-old Brandon Anderson and 27-year-old John Moore attempted to flee the residence in a vehicle. They were both arrested after Anderson crashed the car he was driving. Back at the home on West Maxwell Street, investigators found cocaine and marijuana that were packaged for sale, along with several firearms and nearly $7,000 in cash. Anderson and Moore were both arrested at the crash scene, and Michael Bryant was arrested at the home. Their charges include cocaine trafficking, possession with intent to sell cocaine and marijuana within 1,000 feet of a church, and possession of drug paraphernalia. More arrests are expected to be made in this case. Well, it's that time for our Wanted Fugitive segment. We have Deputy Melanie Peterson from Crime Stoppers with us for the 3 lucky people of the week. Who have we got?
Well, we have 3 individuals. All 3 of these individuals are wanted as of August 15th, 2017. Our first wanted fugitive of the evening is Henry Smith, who is wanted for burglary and grand theft with a bond of $15,000, Allison. So we definitely want to know where Henry Smith is located at. Our next wanted fugitive is Raymond Stallworth, and he is wanted for grand theft of a motor vehicle with a bond of $1,000. Okay. And our final wanted fugitive, who has been on our show multiple times on wanted fugitives, and we've even featured here on ECSO News before, is Shaquita Robbins. Okay. Shaquita is wanted for fraud with a bond of $3,324.58.
All right. And so Henry, Raymond, and Shaquita. If you know where they are, please let us know. Let Deputy Melanie Peterson know. And how can they do that?
They can call Crime Stoppers 24 hours a day at 433-STOP, or you can go to p3tips.com. P3 Tips also offers a mobile app, and you can get your tip number and access all that information and tell us where these folks are at right there online.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Deputy Pearson. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
It was a chance to take back the night. The ECSO joined several agencies in inviting members of our community to Legion Field for National Night Out. ECSO Chief Deputy Chip Simmons was one of the speakers who kicked off the event. He wanted to tell our community how vital their relationships with law enforcement are to making Escambia County a safer place. Kids enjoyed meeting our mounted posse and learning more about horses and their importance in law enforcement. Our Explorer unit kept busy at the event, helping and handing out frisbees and other giveaways.
National Night Out is a community event. We're trying to bring everybody out to an anti-crime, anti-drug, get everybody used to talking to cops also. We have a lot of partners out here. You look, almost everything as far as legal services goes. We have a PACE Center for girls. There's a little bit of everything for the community here tonight.
The Pensacola Police Department was the host of this year's event. We would like to thank Target for their donation of hot dogs and many other sponsors who brought items, including school supplies for the children. The next Operation Clean Sweep will be held in the Gary Circle community this Thursday, August 17th at 8 a.m. We'll be meeting at the Eben Wood Community Center at 3511 West Scott Street. Operation Clean Sweep will suspend monthly cleanups after August until the budget and manning concerns are fixed. While clean sweeps are highly affected, our personnel levels at this time are not adequate enough to support this long-standing and valuable function. Attrition of our sworn personnel is now at a critical level where only essential services can be performed. This is why the sheriff is asking the county commission for a $3.6 million increase to our budget. We need your help locating the people in this week's Missing Persons segment. The first juvenile we are highlighting in this week's Missing Persons segment is 16-year-old Serenity Stapleton. Stapleton was reported as a runaway on May 15th. She is known to frequent the Diego Circle area. And we are also looking for 16-year-old Evelyn Brooks. Brooks has been missing since June 20th. She is considered a habitual runaway. Brooks may be staying with unknown friends at the Pensacola Village Apartments. And 17-year-old Jerome Pugh has been missing since June 6th. Pugh was last seen wearing a UWF ROTC shirt and a pair of blue jeans. If you have any information on any of these missing people, please contact the ECSO at 436-9620. You may have seen the digital billboards that have gone up in a couple places around the county by the Police Benevolent Association. We would like to thank them for their support during the ECSO's continued budget battle. An official vote on our budget will be made by the County Commission next month. And school is back in session, and our school resource officers were happy to see some new and familiar faces on their first day of school in Escambia County on Thursday.
Coming into the SRO program, I look at it like this, that a lot of our kids in Escambia County don't have a positive role model in their life. And that's my main focus, is being possibly that positive role model in that little man's life, or little person's life. Being an SRO to me is very important because I'm responsible from 8:30 to 4:30 for approximately 1,000 students' safety. So safety as an SRO is number one and utmost importance to me.
Due to staffing issues at the ECSO, the number of SROs had to be reduced this year, but our SRO program has not been eliminated. A resolution between the ECSO and school district was made to reduce the number of SROs. Affected schools will see a reduction from 2 officers to 1, with the exception of the north end of the county, Ernest Ward Middle School and Northview High School, which will share an SRO. Our SRO unit had the opportunity to meet some of you before the new school year began at Milkshake with an SRO at the Chick-fil-A on Navy Boulevard earlier this month. Thank you to all of you who came out to this event, and thank you to Chick-fil-A for hosting us. It was a great way to keep kids off the street and off drugs before school picked back up. We're talking about the Kickstart Summer Soccer Clinic hosted by Pensacola Sports. The Escambia County Sheriff's Office was the main sponsor of the clinic this year. We had our Explorer unit on hand to give tours of our command center. Funds contributed to the camp by the ECSO were provided through the Law Enforcement Trust Fund, which is seized drug money. Our Citizens Law Enforcement Academy wrapped up its 3rd week on Thursday night. Attendees learned about the history of the Escambia County Sheriff's Office from Chief Deputy Eric Haynes. Belinda Greathouse, who has been a dispatcher at the ECSO for more than 20 years, taught a class on our dispatch department. This week, the CLIA class will get a visit from our K-9 unit, as well as have a meet and greet with the dogs and their handlers. Learn more about CLIA, including information on the next class, on our website, escambiaso.com. You can also call the Sheriff's Office and ask for David Craig. Wednesday is one of our favorite days here at the ECSO. Have you seen it yet? Chief PIO Amber Southard and Crime Stoppers Coordinator Deputy Melanie Peterson spin the wheel during our Wheel of Fugitives segment. They spin the wheel to see who will be the ECSO's featured fugitive of the week. Episodes are on our social media, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. Bob Tyler is using his commercial time during WEAR Channel 3 News at 6 and 10 p.m. to air Wheel of Fugitives. Check our most recent episode of Wheel of Fugitives to see if you can help us locate the guy.
Hi, I'm Bob Tyler, and I'm pleased to present tonight's Wheel of Fugitives.
It's Warrant Wednesday here at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. What does that mean, Deputy Peterson?
Time to spin the wheel. All right, this week's winner is Ruben Martinez. He's 39 years of age. He's wanted for grand theft with a bond of $10,000. Amber, what's he won?
Ruben, we are waiting on you here at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. Lucky for you, you can come on down here to 1700 West Leonard Street, or you can just wait on people to recognize your face and turn you in. You're going to be put all over our billboards in Escambia County, also our social media sites on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We're waiting to meet you, Ruben. We'd love to see you.
All right, you viewers out there can win too. Call Crime Stoppers at 433-STOP. Give us the location where Ruben is at, and we'll pick him up and give you rewarding cash. Because remember, guys, crime doesn't pay, but we do.
This has been Wheel of Fugitives, presented by Bob Tyler Toyota.
If you know Ruben Martinez's whereabouts, call Crime Stoppers at 433-STOP. If your tip leads to his arrest, you could be eligible for a cash reward of up to $3,000. We've got a special guest this week. We've got Lieutenant McIntosh from the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office here. We are going through the process of getting reaccredited here at the Sheriff's Office. Thank you so much for joining us.
Morning, glad to be here.
Yeah, so let's talk about the accreditation process and what you're here for.
Well, I'm an assessor. My primary job, obviously, is I'm a lieutenant with the Professional Standards Division in St. Lucie County, Florida. However, one of my, I'd say, side functions is to be an assessor for the Florida Police Accreditation Coalition. It's a professional organization. It's non-profit. It's in Tallahassee, and what it is groups of law enforcement agencies police departments, sheriff's offices, state agencies, highway patrol and whatnot, who come together to develop professional standards to increase the professionalism in the law enforcement and corrections industry throughout the state of Florida.
So you're here to go through a lot of our policies and go through our standards and make sure that they're all up to date.
Yes, we read your policies and procedures and make sure that they are in compliance with the standards that are set forth by the Accreditation Coalition.
Wonderful. And how did you get started in this position?
I was about 10 years ago. I've been doing it for about 10 years. My supervisor came in and said they'd like me to be an assessor. When an agency is part of the process and agency gets accredited and assessors come in to your agency, we, as the agency that gets assessed, we have to provide assessors to go out to other agencies to do the same thing. It's reciprocal.
Awesome. And it's every 3 years that you come to our sheriff's office. And last year we did meet the standards and we were reaccredited.
It's generally it's after your first accreditation. It's every 3 years.
Okay.
3 years later, we will do a reaccreditation. So this is a reaccreditation. So we will look at the past 3 years from the last time you were from the agency was accredited, and we will make sure that you're still in compliance and complying with all of the standards that are set forth. Well, some of the things we'll do in our process, we will go out and visit different parts of the agencies. We'll meet with different members of the agencies. We'll speak to them and find out what their function is and how what they do complies with the standards set forth by the accrediting body, the CFA.
And there's a whole website devoted to Florida Sheriff's offices and accreditation, is that correct?
Yes, there's a website, Florida PAC, FLAPAC, you can Google it,
Okay.
and you can pull it up and you can see the different agencies that have been accredited and how long they've been accredited and what the process entails.
Okay, awesome. So if you need some more information, visit that website. And thank you so much for joining us, Lieutenant McIntosh.
My pleasure.
Tanya asks, as private citizens, can they pay their schools to have private officers? Tanya, that could be possible, although the superintendent of schools would have to approve that. Right now, the half of the school resource officer budget is paid by the school system. The other half is paid by the Board of County Commissioners through the budgetary process. The reason why I say that's possible is off-duty officers are employed at places, and again, they make, I think we're upping the off-duty salary. I believe it's going to be $30 per hour. But again, Tanya, the problem is, I know this is extremely difficult for people to understand. If I have 10, let me put it this way to you. If I have 10 positions that need to be filled, and I only have 7 officers, it doesn't matter if you came to me and said, I'll pay these officers $100 an hour. I can't make 7 into 10. And that's really what the issue is I don't have enough officers right now to fill all of those positions. And so therefore, we're looking at everything in Escambia County that's not a statutory requirement, if you will, meaning it's mandated that I must do it as sheriff. You know, I jokingly tell folks it may come down to the point to where all the admin staff is on patrol. If that happens, that happens. But right now the problem is numbers. The numbers are what they are because we haven't been receiving the budgets in the previous years that we've told the county commission that we need. Bill Shavers calls in and asks about, closing precincts and the number that we have closed and continue to close, and will we all end up just assembling here at the sheriff's office and dispatching out to the scene, thereby or to their respective precincts, but then we'll burn more gas, etc. Well, not actually, Bill. I know that's a fairly good soundbite, or if you're on Facebook and Twitter and tweeting all the time, I mean that's something that kind of rises the ire of citizens. But the fact is with the exception of Walnut Hill, which, as you well know, I believe you were still with the sheriff's office at that time. That was only a reserve precinct. We manned that only a couple of days a week by reserve officers that lived up in the north end of the county. And I think we most graciously allowed them to do their reserve time in that area of their community to in fact do the very thing that you just brought up, and that was to save gas, to allow them to get their reserve deputy hours and not require them to make the long travel back and forth. We consolidated where we muster up in the north end of the county, involving cantonment in Molino, and of course Century is a separate precinct. While much hay was made about that determination was made by our operations division. First by now deceased Colonel Rodney Edens, and also supported now by Commander Bain Custer. The precinct out in Perdido is in fact not closed. They muster now at the precinct on Warrington Road. So you ask, what ones in the future will be closed? There will be some closings. I mean, I'm not going to tell anybody there won't be. Why? Because we don't have the manpower to be out there. And as you may or may not recall, most of our precincts are manned by volunteers. If we don't have the volunteers to keep the precincts open, many citizens don't think there's anyone there, but in fact the officers are there, in the back area of the building, either bringing people in for initial questioning, etc., and doing their initial paperwork before transport to the Escambia County Jail. So the precincts, in fact, are used out in Perdido and everywhere else. I know, again, that doesn't fit the narrative that some people would like, but I will also tell you that we have a severe manpower shortage at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. I am paid by the citizens of Escambia County to make very difficult executive decisions, of which I will make rationally and logically after dealing with my staff, meaning I have hundreds of years of law enforcement experience. And the bottom line is the budget. So we'll do what we can with what we have within physical constraints. Timothy asked a question if we could find other sources to generate revenue to support the Escambia County Sheriff's budget. Timothy, one of the issues that you run into with that is the hiring of officers, as you can well imagine, has to be from a source of funding that's called recurring funds, meaning property taxes. Every year we all have to pay a certain amount of taxes. That allows us to budget out in the years with a high degree of assurance that, again, there will be a certain amount of money there to make employee salaries and benefits happen. We cannot use non-recurring funds for the hiring of deputies. As you can well imagine, there's been some talk about, well, why doesn't the sheriff use the trust fund money to hire deputies or to backfill the SRO program? The reason being, Timothy, is quite possibly this year we would have $500,000 in that fund, and we'd go out here and hire up a bunch of deputies and put them on duty, and then next year that fund drops to $50,000. And so what would I have to do in that case? Well, I'd have to terminate officers or suspend them, if you will, until such time that we get the money for that. So the hiring of officers is based upon primarily exclusively ad valorem taxes, which are our property taxes. The millage rate that you pay dependent upon the property that you own, and this also applies to commercial property, by the way, can be forecast every year through the tax appraiser and property appraiser's office to the Board of County Commissioners, so they can project revenues for the following year, and the budget is formulated based upon that. All the other pots of money, as they're referred to, whether it's a federal grant, state grants in many instances, etc., can be used to backfill certain programs, but they can't be used for budgeting purposes in the out years. So while that's a wonderful idea, I can tell you that the Board of County Commissioners saw fit to raise the gas tax by 4 cents at one point to fund ECAT to make it solvent. They also raised the fire department and EMS budget from $6 to $16 million through an MSBU increase, but for some reason they're adamant about not supporting the sheriff's office. Terry and Patty asked the question if it's pretty much a matter of public record that you can pull up the variance in officers' pay throughout the different cities and counties and municipalities. Why do we spend a ridiculous amount of money on a study to verify that? On the surface, I think I would agree with you. Unfortunately, a lot of people use studies as a weapon, meaning that I'm answer shopping, that I want to get an answer, or sometimes it can be legitimate. I'm wanting to verify a particular thing. But I agree with you. I mean, it's not that difficult to go to the Florida Sheriff's Association and say, what's one of the more recent studies conducted by County X in Florida, if you will. There's 67 counties. And what did that study find when they take into consideration the area, rates of crime, rates of incarceration, all of those things, and the deputy's salary based upon that in conjunction with the population of the county? A rational person would say, yes, that's what you do. And by the way, that's what we did in the study that Chief Haynes conducted prior to the county releasing the study that they have. That's not good enough for the Board of County Commissioners. Our starting salary for the deputies should be $41,300 approximately. Again, the current salary range is still $32,900. After a year's probation, they go to almost $35,000. Again, the average person would completely understand that. And when the County Commission says, well, we've given you 3% pay raises, that's based upon, again, that very low base salary, which doesn't help matters at all. And by the way, since I've been sheriff in 2008 to the present, the sheriff's budget has averaged an annual increase of 1%. We have a graph, again, that was produced by the county budgeting office to show that that's been the dramatic increase in the sheriff's budget, 1% per year over the last 8.5 years. And you wonder why we can't raise the salaries of deputies. We can't raise the salaries of deputies because we don't have the money. Sean asked the question if starting deputies' pay will go from about $32,700, $32,900, depending upon background and experience, to $45,000. Well, the short, quick answer, Sean, is no, it will not. The pay study that the county commissioned, the Board of County Commissioners commissioned a pay study. We're starting, to get it back in dribs and drabs. We've got a couple of, the chapters back that dealt specifically with the sheriff's office, law enforcement, corrections, et cetera. Of course, the county runs corrections. I believe the recommendation for starting salary was around $41,300. Would that help with recruiting and retention? Well, of course it would, Sean. Unfortunately, the county's already told us that they will not be implementing the pay study this year, nor will the deputies receive a 3% pay raise. And oh, by the way, they'll not receive it next year. So therein lies the problem that we have in quote unquote negotiating with the Board of County Commissioners. I love it when commissioners from the dais, which is, they're a little bit like Supreme Court justices, they sit up there and make edicts to everyone. In case you're wondering, Sean, why I don't address the county commission is for that reason. There isn't any negotiation or dialogue. Those sorts of statements are made, and then you're left to kind of stand there and say, well, I want to plead my case. And, as they've said, this is what it is. There's no pay study this year that we're going to consider in readjusting pay scales. There's going to be no 3% pay raise, not this year, Sheriff, but not next year. So, I love it when a county commissioner, actually I think there was more than one, Commissioner May made this statement, and I believe Commissioner Robinson also, that, I wish the sheriff was here, number one, and if you paint me in the corner, then I'm just going to do this. Who was painted in the corner? You made the edict to us that, this is, Sheriff, what you're going to live with. So I have no alternative but to prepare the budget and go see the governor and his staff in Tallahassee, which, to be quite honest with you, Sean, I'm looking very forward to. I hope we go to Tallahassee. We need a different set of eyes to take a look at this. What's frustrating for us is, again, over the 8.5 years I've been in office, we in fact have presented these issues to the Board of County Commissioners. We have identified year after year the pay disparity that is only growing in Escambia County. So let me encapsulate it for you real quick. Santa Rosa now starts at $35,000. Their Board of County Commissioners just approved a 10% raise for Santa Rosa deputies. Go one more county over to Okaloosa County. Their starting salary now is $37,500, as is the county next to them, Walton County, is $37,500. Sheriff Ashley, again, just got his Board of County Commissioners, again, to support the sheriff and law enforcement to do an ad valorem tax increase, which again is something in Escambia County that our county commissioners will not even discuss. What they're not telling you is that since 2003, the ad valorem taxes have been continually rolled back. They were 8.7 millage rate. It's now down to 6.6. And when they tell you about how large the sheriff's budget is, that it's the majority of the budgets in Escambia County, that's another sleight of hand. The county commission's budget this year is over $450,000. I think it's right at $470,000. Now we get about $55,000 out of that, or excuse me, $55 million out of that. Now the rest of that is controlled by the county commission. Why? Because number one, they make that budget allocation to the sheriff after we submit what we believe our requirements to be. They make that dictate. They tell us out of the whole county budget what we're going to get. And then out of that also comes the other constitutional, supervisor of election, tax appraiser, tax collector, etc., clerk of the court. So when they say that the sheriff's the largest budget, well, when you take all of that out, there's still, over $350 million. Now who controls that budget? Not the sheriff, not the clerk of the court, not the tax appraiser, tax collector, nor supervisor of elections. So who controls that $350 million? Answer, your Board of County Commissioners. So for them to say that the sheriff's budget is the largest budget in the county, I'm not sure who's doing their accounting, but you might want to change CPAs, because I think even the average citizen understands that that's just not true. So what we're going to do is, number one, we've been told you're not going to get that salary up to $41,000. By the way, those salaries also go up to, sergeants should be making $62,000, $63,000, and our lieutenants should be making $83,000. And that, by the way, is commensurate with the Pensacola Police Department and other like-sized law enforcement agencies in the state of Florida. So, Sean, we're getting an answer from the County Commission that goes a little bit like this. Sheriff, we understand, and it's a documented fact, that your agency went 7 years without any pay raises. Now, they'll tell you how wonderful they are, because over the last 4 years, they've given us 3% pay raises. Those 3% pay raises were based upon, again, a base salary of $32,000 starting, not on $41,000. So, number one, that's your first fallacy. Second one is, your first pay raise at 3% was to do an adjustment for the employee requirement to give to the Florida retirement system. As you recall, Governor Scott and the legislature mandated that employees would now have to contribute an additional 3% to their retirement system out of their total pay. So had they not passed that first pay raise, our officers and the rest of county employees would have actually been making 3% less than they were making before that was mandated. So really, we've only had 3 years of 3% pay raises. And by the way, the sheriff's budget, since I've been sheriff, since 2008 to present day, has increased a whopping 1% per year. Now, 1% per year. And by the way, we'll produce that graph for you if you'd like to see it. I didn't produce the graph. The Board of County Commissioners' Chief Financial Officer produced that graph. So be very careful, Sean, on what you're hearing about the budget issues. I will tell you we have a righteous cause, because for you to tell me that 7 years without pay, and oh, by the way, Sheriff, it's going to end up being at least 9, because this year and next year, you're not going to get any pay raises either. My question back to the County Commission is, then what's the fix? There's a part two, I would assume, to this discussion and statement. What's your fix? That we just live with this condition? That's a little bit like, me going to the doctor and the doctor saying, hey, you have a terminal disease. And I say, well, what's the prognosis for treatment? And the doctor says, we don't have one. So I just go off and die. That's not going to happen during this administration. We look forward to going to Tallahassee.